The first thing I noticed about apartment 7B was the incredible city view, or the charming pre-war details. It was the wallpaper in the bedroom. A faded floral pattern, peeling at the edges, that just seemed off. My landlord, a stout man named Mr. Henderson with a permanent frown, had rushed me through the viewing. He kept praising the natural light and excellent cross breeze, gesturing towards the large windows and pointedly ignoring everything else. But my eyes kept drifting back to that one wall. Behind the curling roses and drooping vines, there was a faint, perfectly rectangular outline. The kind a door would make. I asked him about it, pointing to the wall. Was there a door here before? Mr. Henderson's face tightened. He scoffed, a dry, rattling sound. A door, to where? The neighbour's kitchen. No. Just all plaster, settling. Happens in these old buildings. He patted the wall with a fleshy hand, a gesture that was supposed to be reassuring, but felt more like a warning. He was so adamant, so quick to dismiss it, that it planted a seed of suspicion. But the rent was a steal for the location, and I was desperate. So, I signed the lease, telling myself it was just a quirk of an old building. The first few weeks were normal enough. I unpacked my boxes, hung my pictures, and tried to make the place feel like home. But I could never quite shake the feeling of being watched, especially in the bedroom. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, heart pounding, convinced someone was standing in the corner of the room. I'd turn on the light, of course, and there would be nothing there. Just the floral wallpaper and the faint, ghostly outline of the door that wasn't. I tried to cover it up. I hung a large, modern painting over the spot, a vibrant splash of colours that was the complete opposite of the dreary wallpaper. For a while, it worked. Out of sight, out of mind, or so I thought. But then the sound started. At first, it was subtle. A soft scratching, like a mouse scrabbling inside the wall. I bought traps, but they remained empty. The scratching continued, always from the same spot, right behind my painting. Then came the knocking. It wasn't loud. It was a soft, hesitant tap-tap-tap. It always happened around 3 in the morning, waking me from a dead sleep. The first time I heard it, I thought it was the pipes. The second time, I thought it was the neighbours. By the 5th time, I knew. It was coming from behind the wallpaper. From the door that Mr. Henderson swore didn't exist. My blood ran cold. I would lie frozen in my bed, staring at the painting, waiting for the knocking to stop. It always did, just as suddenly as it began, leaving me in a silence that was somehow more terrifying. My curiosity started to battle with my fear. Who or what could be knocking? I started doing my own investigation. I pulled up the original blueprints for the building from the city's online archives. I spent hours tracing the lines for the 7th floor, my fingers shaking as I examined the layout for apartment 7B. My apartment was exactly as depicted. A living room, a kitchen, a bathroom, and 1 bedroom. There was no extra room, no closet, no pantry, nothing. The wall was just a wall, a solid line separating my apartment from my neighbours. According to the official records, there was absolutely nothing there. This should have comforted me, but it did the opposite. It meant the outline wasn't part of the original design. It was something added later, something hidden. The knocking grew more insistent, less hesitant. It sounded less like a request and more like a demand. My friends thought I was losing my mind. "You're just stressed from the move," my best friend, Chloe, told me over the phone. "Old buildings make weird noises. Get some earplugs." But I knew it wasn't the building. It was something else. One Saturday, after a particularly sleepless night filled with frantic knocking, I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed a utility knife from my toolbox, my hands trembling so badly I could barely hold it steady. I walked over to the wall, took down the painting, and stared at the faded wallpaper. Taking a deep breath, I made the first cut. The paper was old and brittle, and it tore easily. I started pulling it away in long strips. Dust and the musty smell of decades-old paste filled the air. Beneath the first layer of floral wallpaper was another, a garish striped pattern from what looked like the 70s. And beneath that, a pale, yellowed paper with tiny, faded ducks. It was like peeling back layers of time. And with each layer I removed, the outline of the door became clearer, sharper. It was real. It had been papered over, again and again, a desperate attempt to erase its existence. Finally, I reached the last layer. As I tore it away, my fingers brushed against something cold, metal. I stepped back, my heart hammering against my ribs. There, set into the plaster, was a doorknob. Not a modern one, but an old, ornate brass knob, tarnished black with age. It was ice-cold to the touch, a stark contrast to the stuffy air in the room. The door itself was seamless, painted the same color as the wall, as if someone had tried to make it disappear completely. It was only the faint, dark crack around its edges and the impossible doorknob that gave it away. My eyes scanned the newly exposed plaster around the knob, and then I saw it. Scratched into the wall, just below the handle, were 5 words. The letters were jagged and deep, carved with a desperate force. My breath caught in my throat as I read the message. "Do not let me out again." Again. That word echoed in my mind. Again. This had happened before. Someone had opened this door. And what they found, what they let out, was so terrible they had to seal it shut, carve a warning, and bury it under layers of denial. The knocking from the other side stopped. A heavy, expectant silence fell over the room. It felt like whatever was behind the door was holding its breath, waiting to see what I would do. My hand hovered over the icy doorknob. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to pack my bags, break my lease, and never look back, to listen to the warning. But a darker, more powerful curiosity had taken hold. What was behind the door? Who was me? And why were they locked away? The silence stretched on, thick and suffocating. And then a new sound began, not a knock, but a whisper. A faint, dry voice, seeping through the cracks of the door. It was just one word, repeated over and over again, a soft, pleading, insidious chant. Please ... I stood there for what felt like an eternity, caught between paralyzing fear and an irresistible urge to know the truth. The whisper was hypnotic, weaving its way into my thoughts, promising answers, promising an end to the mystery. My fingers twitched, inching closer to the cold brass. The warning was clear. The blueprints were clear. Mr. Henderson's lie was clear. But the whisper was so much more compelling. It was the sound of loneliness, of long-suffering confinement. I thought about leaving. I really did. I pictured myself calling Chloe, telling her she was right, but I was just stressed. I pictured myself putting the painting back up, pretending I'd never found anything, but I knew I couldn't. I would spend the rest of my life wondering. The whisper grew a little louder, a little more desperate. Please ... help me ... double quotes. My hand closed around the doorknob. The cold was shocking, seeping into my bones. I took one last, shaky breath, squeezed my eyes shut, and turned. The lock made a loud, grinding click that echoed through the silent apartment. The door, which had been sealed for who knows how long, swung inward with a low groan, releasing a gust of cold, stagnant air that smelled of dust and something else, something like old earth and forgotten regrets. I opened my eyes and peered into the darkness beyond. There was nothing there. Just a small, empty, pitch-black space, a closet, maybe. I felt a wave of anticlimactic disappointment. All that for an empty closet. The whisper had stopped. The air was still. And then, from the depths of the darkness, 2 small points of light flickered open. And a voice, no longer a whisper, but a clear, joyful, and utterly chilling voice, spoke from the void. "Thank you. I've been waiting for so long." And as it stepped out into the light, I finally understood the warning. I hadn't let a person out. I had let something else out. And now, it was my turn to be the one on the other side of the door.